What a beautiful day.
And we are joined by Dr. Dina Kulik. Now, you probably know her because she's very well known in this area. She's a pediatrician at the Hospital for Sick Children, an assistant professor at the University of Toronto. And today you have some great news for celiacs, but also for parents who have children perhaps that are gluten intolerant.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been really fortunate to be working with Quaker, the company Quaker, this summer to promote their new line of certified gluten-free oats, which is really great news for people like me who have celiac that can't tolerate anything that has gluten in it, including many products that could be contaminated, even oat products that are naturally gluten-free.
I was going to say, aren't oats naturally gluten-free?
Absolutely. So oats by themselves are naturally gluten-free, but they're often contaminated in the facilities in which they're processed with wheat and barley and rye, and that can cause people like me that are either having celiac, the real disease, or that are gluten sensitive and not able to tolerate gluten products. That can cause them symptoms if it's contamination.
Now, you say you only found out 6 years ago, was it?
Yeah, 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
I found out during medical school, something I wasn't really expecting. Essentially, throughout my childhood, my adolescence, I always had a sensitive stomach. I found I would often be, uncomfortable after birthday parties or events. I never really knew why. And my doctor always told me, you have irritable bowel syndrome. You're just sensitive. You have sensitive gut. And then during medical school, I learned more about celiac and what that actually means. And I realized that my story really did piece together with that diagnosis. So I started having some investigations and came to the diagnosis.
Well, it's a great thing because for Canadians, especially in the winter, for me, oatmeal is like a staple. Yes. I love oatmeal because you can add anything to it.
Yes.
Some protein powder, some fruits, So for parents, this is a godsend.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's easy, and it's so quick, which is great if you have kids. So versatile, so much variety. You can mix with them different fruits, different nuts. It's an amazing product that's so easy to use.
Don't you find as a doctor it's one of those things where you think, so how come somebody didn't do this 5 years ago?
It's actually a really good question. There are a few companies out there that do it, but they're much more expensive products. So I don't know why it took so long, but I'm really glad that they did.
So you have some other tips for people who are gluten intolerant.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things you could eat now. We were talking before about how limited I might be in my normal life because I have celiac, and I'm not limited at all. There's so many products out there now. Most restaurants cater to people that are gluten sensitive or have celiac disease. Every menu has items on it now that they call gluten-free. Yeah, and a million products in the grocery stores now, from cereals to different, dinner meals to breakfast options. Fruits, veg, proteins have always been gluten-free. So most things are not that limiting.
I love it when you see, a container of ham and it says gluten-free.
Right.
Really? Okay. But can you explain, it seems that it's just like burgeoned in the last few years. Why?
Well, one, there's a lot more awareness about it. So 1 in 67 people in North America has celiac, has true diagnosable celiac. 1 in 67 is one of the most common illnesses we see. So there's that. People know about that now, and they're getting more tested for it. And I think, so many people that were diagnosed as having IBS or irritable bowel syndrome now know more about it. There's more of a public consciousness about it. So they're being tested for it. And I think a lot of people don't tolerate gluten, whether you actually have the disease or you're just sensitive to it. And so when you notice that and you try gluten-free products, you feel better, so you buy them more. So there's more availability and supply and demand.
So that's what I was going to ask you about, because I know a lot of people, including my niece, who isn't celiac and was tested for it. Right. And yet as soon as she cut out gluten, she felt better. Her digestive system, sleeping, her metabolism, everything. So it's sort of, is it a sliding scale? And what should we look for with our children to find out if maybe there's something there?
Right. Children and adults, right? It's the whole, whole spectrum. I think that the testing is imperfect. We're learning more as we go. So I've had many patients, and myself as my own patient, that didn't meet true criteria for celiac initially. I personally forged ahead. I stopped gluten-free, which was making me feel better, in order to get testing later back on gluten-containing foods so I could really prove to myself I really had a diagnosable disease. But a lot of people are negative on their blood work, and then they have endoscopy or a scope and biopsies taken inside their esophagus, and then truly do actually have celiac and yet did not meet criteria by blood work. I just think we're not perfectly there yet. I think there's a lot more to learn. But I do agree that many people that maybe don't even have celiac do have symptoms with gluten, it's a very hard protein to digest. So people that have any kind of difficulties with digestion often do find issues with it, but symptoms are really varied. So many people have weight loss, diarrhea. That's the typical thought we think about. If you open a textbook in pediatrics or family health, you'll see this like wasted kind of child. But many people have constipation, people have chronic belly pain, bloating. Some people gain weight, like water weight. I actually lost 20 pounds when I went gluten-free, not because I was limited calories, but really I kind of just shrank down.
I was celiac all of a sudden.
Maybe you are. Maybe you are.
Maybe that's it. So, I mean, what should you eat during the day? Like, give us an example of what's good.
So any fruit, any vegetable, beans, lentils, tofu, any protein, so meats, eggs, fish, chicken, etc. Rice, corn, certified gluten-free oats are gluten-free, any of those things. What we can't eat is wheat, rye, or barley. So wheat is obviously in lots of things, lots of breads, etc.
What about corn? Does that? Because I know
corn is gluten-free.
It is gluten-free.
It's a vegetable.
Okay.
It's really wheat, barley, and rye. Period. That's it. And stop. And we don't really eat a lot of rye or barley in our diet, so it's really just wheat. And there's so many alternatives now with other kinds of flours.
Right.
So corn flours and rice flours and oat flours and flax, and there's lots of options.
Does the Canadian Celiac Association put its trademark on things that are gluten-free, that are guaranteed gluten-free?
Yeah, so if it's a celiac or it's a gluten-free product made in a gluten-free facility, which is an important part because of contamination. So if you're making a grain or a cereal in a facility that also manufactures things with wheat, there could be contamination of that, therefore making it not gluten-free. So you need to have a gluten-free facility.
So how does the average consumer, find out about whether it could be cross-contaminated?
That stamp. So you're going to look for that stamp of approval.
Stamp.
That's
Okay.
right.
Well, I know I've been into certain places like bakeries where it is actually a gluten-free cake.
Yes.
However, it's not certified as gluten-free because another cake that may have been contaminated.
Sure. So those times you kind of take your chances and see. There are definitely gluten-free bakeries that only make things that are
where there's not a
gluten-free.
spot of gluten flour that hits the
right.
table. But
and many people are not that sensitive. So if you truly have celiac, the risk long term to that is certain types of cancer. So lymphoma of the bowel is the potential negative outcome of having celiac that's not remedied with a truly gluten-free diet. But lots of people that are not true celiacs, that just are sensitive, can have a little bit of gluten in their diet. They might feel a little bit crummy, but they won't get sick from it.
Quick question here. We had a study earlier this year talking about allergies to peanuts, and where they were talking about introducing little bits of things to babies early and maybe cutting that down.
Yes.
Do you think that's the case with gluten from what you know, because you're an expert on celiac?
No, it's not exactly the same thing. So doing these kind of trials with peanuts. Actually, I spoke to you guys about this when we were talking about eggs and introducing foods early to your children. Right. A little bit of peanut, a little bit of egg, etc. What that is, it's an immune reaction. It's a true allergy. We call IgE-mediated allergy. It's an immune reaction. Celiac is a little bit different. It doesn't cause your whole body to get inflamed, just locally at the bowel level. So a little bit actually can cause a lot of symptoms versus remedy it. Yeah. But a lot of researchers are looking at certain pills or other things you can drink that will coat the bowel and therefore not damage it if you have some gluten. So there's lots of stuff in the pipework.
Yeah, but at this point, it's not a matter of trying a little bit and building up an immunity. Just don't go near it. If you're a celiac, don't go near it.
It's not the same kind of process as an allergic reaction.
That's worth knowing.
Mm-hmm. What would be the first sign in a young person? Would they be complaining about tummy aches?
Most commonly kids have, or adults do, have some kind of element of GI distress or gastrointestinal distress, some bloating, some difficulties with poos, whether that's diarrhea or constipation, pain, right? But you can also get tired, you can get rashes, you can get headaches, poor sleep, behavioral issues. It's really the whole gamut. It's anything that makes you feel uncomfortable celiac can give you.
And how quickly is that diagnosable in a child?
So it's a blood test. That's all you need.
All right.
Most people react to the blood test, and we get the results within a couple of weeks.
Perfect.
It's fast. It's easy.
It's easy. And I gather so is the oatmeal to make for fall back to school.
Very
Perfect
easy.
breakfast.
Yeah. My favorite thing is overnight oats. I don't know if you guys have done this before. Yeah. It was so much fun. Yeah. I do it with my kids. I really feel strongly that if your kids help make the food, buy the food, see it at the grocery store, and then make things with you, they like it a lot more. So so much variety, so easy to make, different fruit, nuts, everything, and they love it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dina.
Thank you.
When we come back, Toronto-based singer-songwriter Caitlin Cozell joins us to chat about some traveling with her debut single. This is what she said on Jewel.